Chilling tales for dark nights.
Want to make sure you never miss a Chilling Tales for Dark Nights video again? Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
Hey there, amigos. Just a quick thank you for helping us out at helpchillin.org. Your kind donations have really made an impact. If you haven't helped yet but would like to show your support, just visit helpchillin.org. We read every name and we appreciate you all. Why, hello there, amigos. We've officially entered the spooky season, and it's time to hawk some horror. What? I'm no whore, Chester. I'm just a model employee doing his damn job. This coming from an overgrown salamander that humps old logs. Let's head in, friends. Scaly prick. Okay. Anyway, like I was saying, did you know that Chillin' Tales for Dark Nights has a big anthology book full of your favorite stories? Well, take a second and visit chillinbook.com to link right to it. Chillin' Tales for Dark Nights 30 Tales of Terror contains just that, 30 tales never before available in print by some of the most prolific and talented authors on the online community, each one accompanied by a suitably grim illustration by David Romero. Strange cats, body mutilations, demonic apartments, revenge from beyond the grave, and yes, even a man-eating monster or two. All these and more beckon you further into the darkness. Visit chillinbook.com for the perfect October read. So tonight we welcome back one of our favorite authors, who's been with us since the old days, Mario E. Martinez. You'll remember him from such stories as The First Cup, A Whistle in the Dark, Leonard and the Carousel, Grand Electric Gestures of Love, We Sell Pickles, Recipe for Revenge, Thin Soup, and Devotion to the Dead. He's proud to let you know that all these stories and many more are included in his new book, just out today. It's called The Chickens Are Not Her Chickens. And if you like your horror with that signature Mario weirdness like we do, this one's an indispensable addition to your bookshelf. So without further delay, from Mario E. Martinez, I give you the title track, The Chickens Are Not Her Chickens. One. The smell of flowers and their enriched flower beds nearly overwhelmed Russ. He covered his face with his hat and started to call for the small shop's owner, hoping to stop her rehearsed greeting, but she was faster.
"Welcome to Mayella's Flowers and Nursery,"
she said from the back.
"We've got—"
"It's Russ Wise, Mrs. Hernandez." He cut in, but he may as well have stayed quiet.
"everything from azaleas to zinnias and all in between. We've got topsoil, potting soil, fertilizer, manure, and synthetic. There's no better place in Dodge, or the whole state for that matter,"
Mrs. Hernandez recited. Midway through, she emerged from the back room with a bundle of long carnations in her arms. The short-spectacled woman wore iron-gray hair down to her hips.
"Oh, hey, Russ,"
she said, placing the flowers onto a plastic sheet spread across the counter.
"what can we do for you?"
Russ forced a smile. "Just hoping to get Caro some flowers. Something, cheerful." Mrs. Hernandez leaned closer and chuckled.
"What'd you do?"
Russ shrugged. "You know husbands."
"I sure do,"
she replied.
"That's why I cut my last one loose and replaced him with a newer model."
They settled on a mix of delphiniums, lilies, and roses, but no matter the prodding, Russ wouldn't be upsold on a vase. "We've got a real nice one at home, so we might as well use it," he told Mrs. Hernandez.
"Bien codo,"
she accused, knocking on her elbow.
"And don't say I didn't try sending you to battle prepared. But don't you worry, husbands and wives are both idiots when they're fighting." Husbands are idiots for always pissing off their wives, and wives are idiots for always forgiving them.
Let's hope. On the ride home, Russ felt guilty about lying to Mrs. Hernandez, but there hadn't been much choice. It was either lie or tell her Caro had gone crazy. 2. It had been a Saturday weeks ago. Usually, the Texas sun forced itself through the curtains at that hour, but the sky looked like rain was on the way, and the clouds had kept their bedroom dark. The same must have been true for the kids because they hadn't been awake yet. Russ got up to piss and got back in bed to roll around in half-dissolved dreams. The toilet flush had woken Caro. She got out of bed, used the bathroom, and brushed her teeth.
I'm going to get some eggs for breakfast. I'll wake you when they're ready,
she whispered in Russ's ear. He buried himself further into his pillow. Thanks, but I'm sure the kids will beat you to it. He felt her cool lips on his bare shoulder even after she was gone, and then the mattress pulled his thoughts far away. But his dozing didn't last. Frantic hands yanked him back into the waking world. What's wrong? Russ blurted, eyes squinting to see through the fog of sleep. Once his drowsiness evaporated, Caro's face stared back at him. They had known each other since middle school, fell in love on the same summer shift at the Dairy King, and had been married not a month after graduation. They had had 2 children and were content to live in their own company on 100 acres of scrub brush and green stock tanks near the county line. In all that time, Russ had never seen Caro so terrified. All she got out was,
Something's wrong. Something's wrong.
She pulled Russ out of bed and pushed him downstairs until they were on the back porch. Caro kept her robe closed with a shiver in hand, and Russ yawned in his boots and briefs. She pointed beyond the porch, but when Russ followed her finger, he still didn't understand. It was just a chicken coop, an old converted aluminum tool shed done up with shelves and chutes for collecting eggs. And all around it were the chickens, hardy hens pecking at the scratch bucket where it lay toppled over. Russ looked at Caro.
It's in there,
she said, almost whimpering. Her fearful tone almost had Russ going back inside for his pistol, but he figured if Caro survived, then he would too. The coop walls had holes bored through them to let in light and air, but to Russ's annoyance, they made examining the inside no easier. When he stepped past the milling chickens, Russ realized this great and terrible thing that spooked his wife was in fact so scary that a dozen chickens stood nearby with the same concern they showed the clouds above. There were no devils or snarling beasts, just a rooster pecked to death. The body was so fresh, ants hadn't gotten to it yet. Russ laughed at the chickens. Weren't having old Hank's nonsense, huh? You could have just told him y'all had headaches. Caro didn't share his laughter. A dead animal was just a reality on the ranch, but when Russ tried to joke it off, Caro shook her head.
Our chickens wouldn't do that to Hank,
she vowed.
No, they knew him and they... I can't believe you don't see it.
Looking at the dead rooster in his hand, Russ asked, See what? Tears rimmed her eyes.
Those aren't our chickens,
she hissed. Later, as a family, they ate breakfast of cereal and toast with either grape or strawberry jelly. When the kids asked for eggs, Russ was quick to say, Sorry, kiddos, none today. The ladies just weren't in the mood. 3. Russ had grown up with more experience with livestock than people. His emotional range was either silent satisfaction at a good day's work or stoic annoyance from a hard one. Never did he see a man deal with someone who not only harbored a crazy thought, but was consumed by it. Caro's ludicrous thought that maybe someone switched the chickens had Russ running around the property like a tracker from the movies, but there was nothing to find. On the drive back with the flowers, he decided to treat Caro like an animal. a horse specifically. They were smart and read their rider's emotions in all kinds of ways. A jerky pull, a nervous shift in the saddle, that kind of stuff made horses jumpy. Their brains thought their riders were reacting to a danger they couldn't see. The rancheros always said pretend. Pretend so hard the horse believed it too. So, Russ rehearsed the whole way home. To the neighbors he passed on the streets, strange indeed it was to see him mimicking reactions in his pickup. A pull away for feigned shock or a dance of the eyebrows for playful interest. Russ even went over a few innocuous lines, changing the emphasis and stresses each time he said them. He felt like a lunatic as he parked his truck with a forced smile that remained for the entire walk to the front door. It felt foolish when he got inside and Caro was nowhere to be found. The house was quiet, but Russ expected that. Ever since she got rid of the chickens, Caro was stricter with the kids. Thinking to surprise his wife, Russ figured he'd put the flowers in water. He got the empty vase from the cupboard, rinsed it out, filled it with water, and mixed in the flora food powder. He arranged the flowers the best he could. Placing the vase on the table, Russ thought he heard something outside. The dining room looked out onto the porch and the ranch beyond, but nothing was there except the chicken coop, and Russ noticed a stubborn anthill. He had sprayed out there, but they must have smelled the blood and chicken scraps left over from Caro's episode days ago. 4. It was a relief the kids were at their grandmother's place. They were still so young that they didn't even sense Russ wasn't himself, or that it was unusual to visit Mima on a weekday. His mother hadn't minded. She'd turn away the Pope for those kids. Nor did she ask any questions other than if Russ was hungry.
"You've lost weight,"
she told him. Russ grinned and patted his stomach. "Doctor's orders." He lied because no one tells their mother their wife has gone insane. Folks down in Puentes talked about their personal business out in the public, but in Dodd, marriages were private affairs. He had tried to convince himself that he was the crazy one, overreacting to what might be harmless imagination. But it was that she had still thought about the chickens enough to make the list that made Russ whisk the kids away. It had been a page from the magnetic notepad on the fridge. Its borders were strawberry vines, and the heading, groceries, was on every page. Caro had meant to throw the page away, but missed the bin. On it was a list of every chicken by name. She had been delighted when she got to think them up, and all the names had heavy X's next to them. There was no way to know if the note was from when Hank died days ago or the night before, and Russ intended to find out. He had entered the house like there was a panther somewhere inside, and even though he had asked her to stick around to talk, Caro wasn't there. Going to the kitchen, he had seen her standing out back near the chicken coop. He had been somewhat relieved to see her there, standing so boldly, hands on her hips as she looked out at the land. Smiling and ready to forget her silly hysteria, Russ walked onto the back porch. He had had the list in his hand to confront her, but it fell and rolled away with the breeze. Caro turned to greet him. Her face beamed of victorious serenity. Piled about her feet was a bucket full of scratch. At that moment, a bloody machete was driven into it like an Excalibur. Feathers clung to the leaves of distant trees and decorated the nopales. Around her, chickens lay in pieces, halves and quartered with mindless savagery.
"Hey, baby, don't worry,"
she told him.
"I got them all. I had to be sure, so I got them all."
5. No one was upstairs, but judging from the clothes thrown across his daughter's bed, Caro probably took the kids fishing. The property had tanks full of catfish and sickly bass, nothing worth cooking, but it was fun for the kids. Seeing his tackle box missing from the hall closet confirmed it. This time, the love whispers of relief, of normalcy, felt like a siren song, Every particle of him wanted to believe it was over, that the cloud above his family had drifted on. But again, he couldn't shake the unease dancing up and down his spine. The unease finally relented when Russ found a note on the fridge. It was on the same groceries paper, and Caro had written Russ in big loopy letters across the top.
Russ, I don't deserve such a good man. After my moods, it's a wonder you didn't throw me in with the loonies at Almeida. I'm better now. I fixed the coop. Go see. Love, Caro. P.S. Took the kids.
Russ whistled a long and grabbed a beer from the fridge. He opened it, drank, and went outside to see what Caro had done to the coop. 6. Russ's mind registered what it saw in the coop and didn't try to hide the image as if Russ was a child. It allowed him to see, sparing no detail, but it did feed Russ a thought, simple and strong as the sun. It's not real. The grotesque reds of meat, the stark whites of bone, none of them were there. Not the soft smell of death and decay baked to insufferable fumes by the heat. None of it. As in a dream, he recognized the jumbled pile of limbs as his children. Fishing wire bound their dead wrists so tightly they remained purple and swollen even in death. His daughter's face was hidden under her brother's body. He lay like the Christ off his cross, head upside down facing the coop door. The boy's visage was a death mask of dried and darkened blood. The whack that did it was not enough to cleave the boy's skull completely. It split the skin so the wound divided the boy's face in half. Eyes rolled into the small skull, mouth silently screaming, and lips pulled back to show his broken teeth. Seeing his son's teeth brought a stray thought that next week the boy had an appointment with the orthodontist in Puentes. That simple thought pierced the dreamy veil. Russ wailed like an animal, full of pain and devoid of understanding, and crawled to his children. He scooped them into his arms and embraced their cold bodies, and screamed until his throat felt like it was tearing from agony. So deep and profound was his suffering, the first machete chops barely registered. They were like the lashes of a switch against a thick shirt, hardly worth his attention. But one swing caught Russ between the shoulder blade and neck. His left arm went limp, and he spilled his children to the ground. He turned, unsure, and the next strike on his shoulder left no doubt he was being chopped up like wood. He managed a tearful look at his wife before the machete caught him on the forehead, and he went down. Caro hacked at Russ nearly a dozen times before he finally stopped moving. 7. It took Caro a while to catch her breath. Those kids, whoever they were, had struggled the whole way. And why wouldn't they? She had found them out, seen them for the imposters they were. The girl had been the easier one. She was so small. And sure, the boy ran and hid, but his crying made him easy to find. The man took a long time to die, but in death she couldn't have been more certain it wasn't Russ. She had suspected it, and now she was sure. Caro filled the coop with hay they kept around for the horses. When there was an even pile covering the bodies, Caro got a lighter from her pocket along with folded paper. She straightened out the page, a list of her chickens with all their names crossed out. Below the chickens were 3 other names: fake boy, fake girl, fake husband. Grinning, she lit the edge of the paper and tossed it into the coop. Fire filled the space fast, and the heat made her step back a few yards. After a while, the coop walls glowed, warping, and before long, Caro had to retreat even further. As she watched, a pinprick on her ankle made her kick her foot. She had knocked over an anthill, just a circle of dust with a hole no bigger than a sunflower seed. She brushed off her foot and went inside for the bug spray. And that was The Chickens Are Not Her Chickens by Mario E. Martinez, a good reminder that flowers don't always do the trick. Our next one tonight is a little taste of body horror, so be forewarned. Might make you a little itchy. So without further delay, I give you A Dinner of Your Flesh. One. You feel them under your skin, between the threads of your muscles, crawling the links of your bones. They dulled your brain enough so you don't scream and scratch bloody lines into your flesh. There's a tickle, though, an itch that makes you imagine how they burrow into the membranes and muscles, into tendons and joints, to eat and lay their eggs until your body fails and they are released to find other hosts. You want to die, but they won't let you. You are their precious incubator, as Dr. Motes had said. But it is not just your body they invade, but your mind as well. Like thousands of spies, they found your brainstem and followed it into the temporal lobe, and beyond as if they had warrants. Now, they chose your destination, moved your limbs, and they sifted deeper into the contents of your mind. There they found the name Dr. Muhammad Mercil, Mo for short, and the dinner date you both had planned. Mo was from the mathematics department across campus, so you knew it was no coincidence when he came to your office with an extra coffee. And just how you liked it. Mo stumbled through asking you out. He was careful about his language and your comfort. The nervous way he kept smoothing his hair was cute, and how the trembling of his voice worsened the closer he got to the point was endearing. When he got to his question, all he managed was, "So, there's a Mexican... a place for food, and oh God, You smiled at him.
Yes, I'll have dinner with you,
You said. He wasn't a tall man. His hair thinned on top into crinkled curls, and you suspected his noodle arms weaker than you'd expect. Yet it had been years since you had a date, years more since the divorce. So you smiled and thought, why not? You added, almost as an afterthought,
I just have a meeting with Dr. Motes at 5, so 8?
His smile was so white.
Okay, 8. I'll be waiting,
He said. When he left your office, you almost imagined him going to the Mexican place and getting a table hours in advance. Now, with thousands of them inside you, and thousands more growing, you wish they wouldn't have found those neurons that thought of Mo and your date. But they had. They had found it and latched onto it like greedy scavengers. They wanted people, hosts, and a Mexican restaurant in the college town was a good place to start. You tried to resist, clenching your muscles and looking at every handhold, a trash can, bench, bushes, fences, to latch onto, but they allowed you to move only your eyes because they wanted to see. What did they care if you watched? They needed your arms, your legs, your mouth, your meat. They already watched the world with their own prismatic eyes from the darkness of your ears and hair and nostrils. You feel them, watching, reporting, as their colonies embed in your veins and clog your arteries. 2. Dr. Moats had always been a kind and eccentric woman. Though she went by Sylvia Moats, the office rumors said she had changed her name numerous times. Once to flee Algeria, once more to escape apostasy charges in Bangladesh, and finally one last time because the Ohio lab cared more about her skin than her work. She was a plump woman with patchy rolls of pale brown skin. As always, she met you with a smile and breath smelling of peppermint. Her assistant, Elvin, was at her side looking rather ghoulish, but his gangly limbs and bony shoulders weren't his doing. As Dr. Moats talked to you, all pleasantries, Elvin went around the lab noting readings from various screens. When he stood beside a pile of reports, Dr. Moats asked,
"Is everything prepared then?"
Elvin nodded. All was as Dr. Moats had specified.
"Good. Then please show Dr. Balderas into the next room,"
Dr. Moats said, moving to the data pile.
"I'll explain everything in a minute."
You looked forward to that. Sure, you and Dr. Moats were friendly, giggles at the water fountain, compliments on a brooch or a bracelet, but your fields were almost opposites. You were a geologist and she was an entomologist. So it was rather odd she asked for your help, especially in one of the labs in the antiquated wing of the old Serene building. But you always enjoyed collaboration and padding your resume. Elvin led you into an adjoining lab. It was a common lab, sinks, vent hood, emergency cleaning stations, and an observation window into the attached lab. On the center table was a microscope. Elvin motioned for you to go to it, and as you do, the room's intercom clicked on.
"Elvin, I need you back here."
Dr. Moats said.
"Now, Dr. Balderas." "Norma, please."
You said, thinking Moats' formality was a little silly.
"Very well, Norma.
Dr. Moats said.
Please be kind enough to observe the microscope. It is an example of a very rare fly, the Muscus sordin, the Solomon fly. It was once thought a myth, yet there one is. Please observe it."
Though you mentioned your lack of expertise in the field, Dr. Moats said expertise was not necessary, only that you observe. Afterward, the rest of the experiment would unfold itself.
"You are being recorded for our notes,"
she assured you. Under the microscope lens, there was a fly. It was not the red-eyed ones communing over trash cans on campus, or even like the ones in split-wood ranches down the highway. The fly, frankly, looked hellish. It seemed made of barbs. The spurs of its legs were yellow-lined and irregular for optimum grip. The pretarsal claws were almost simian, except there was no skin, only exoskeleton. The mouth, too, was more shiv than labium, and the quartered point of its proboscis lolled like a tongue. You hated the compound eyes, so big and spherical. Yet, unlike the ommatidia clusters of houseflies, each hexagonal unit had false pupils that looked up at you through the microscope's lens. As you looked, Dr. Moats prattled on about the intricacies of its physiology and the history of its study. You were used to that kind of talk and how to politely endure it. Academics were often excited about their fields and forgot that others often weren't. Then you even reminded yourself not to discuss geology too much with Mo. Yet looking at the Solomon fly, as Dr. Moats called it, you felt tickles on your hand and heard a faint hollow buzzing from the corners of the lab. You thought it was only a Pavlovian response, like feeling an itch at the sight of a mosquito. When the false tingle moved more or less in a straight line, You pulled away from the microscope and yelped. There was a fly on your wrist. Shooing it away, you laughed. Smiling, you say,
Oh, that scared me. That fly.
but you stop. There are more in the lab. At first, you see only one or two buzzing around, but as you notice them, the others reveal themselves, slowing and banking in their flight patterns. Dr. Moat stopped talking, and the buzzing you found was not a trick of the mind. No, they came from the flies falling from the vent hood like blown ashes.
You are their precious incubator.
Dr. Moat said.
Do not resist him.
You didn't have time enough to decipher what she meant. The flies had marked you, and they weren't the cowards in houses or trash bins. Those flies sought you, found you, and explored your flesh.
Do not resist him.
Dr. Moat said again. You killed a few, but soon panicked. They looked for your orifices, your nose and mouth and ears, and your body tried to fight them with frantic hands slapping at one place and be spurned to slap at another and another. One landed on your cheek and you shut your eye against it. Oh, there were hundreds by then, but it raced to your eye, avoided your clawing hand, and found your tear duct. It was like a chunk of glass squirming into you. As you felt it enter your nasal cavity and walk down the lining into your throat, Dr. Moat said,
Do not resist him.
You screamed finally, and the flies rushed down your throat as if beckoned. 3. Passing a storefront window, you see your face. The flies don't care to look at themselves, but neither do they stop your eyes from seeing. Your eyes are open like you've been discovered in the middle of some secret shame, a shocked expression that pulls back your upper lip, and the flies in your skin shut your lower jaw tight to conceal themselves. This produces a toothy frown that scares passers-by into stepping onto the street to avoid you. All of your face moves. The lumps of insects just below the skin bulge and migrate with no patterns but their hunger. You hope Mo takes one look at your rictus walk and palsied face and runs, but the flies eat that too. The restaurant is packed for a Thursday. The flies buzz so loudly, people part for you because they think you're some weird-faced loon humming through her teeth. The hostess asks if she can help you and looks at you like you're contagious, but you can't stop your body. The flies smell the restaurant, its people, and know little of etiquette. From inside the pit of tables, Mo sees you and waves. You want to scream, to warn him, but the flies find your electrical impulses as delicious as the rest of you. Mo is so polite he doesn't say anything about your face as he pulls out your chair. The flies sit you down roughly and you turn your nose toward the other tables. Your eyes focus on Mo and you pray that he sees the terror in them and heeds your warning. But he doesn't. He just comments the food smells good and asks about your meeting with Dr. Moats. You gurgle a noise and he laughs, saying, Yes, she can be. Oh, and don't think I don't like her, but she can be a little drab. Yes, we're all obsessed with our work, but tell me about a movie or a vacation at least. He takes your strange sounds as nervous laughter. A waiter arrives with a bowl of chips and a plastic molcajete of red salsa. The waiter shudders at your gaze and spends the rest of the time addressing Mo. Mo orders and asks what you'd like. To him, the deflating sound of your lungs easing through your crooked mouth is indecision. He orders you the mole and tells you it's very good. The flies attack the chips with your hand. They break them and tilt your head back and let the chips fall like fish food into your mouth. Horrified as you are when your teeth open and hundreds of mouths peck at the flakes, you think Mo will see and will run. But when you look at him, the front of you covered in chips, he takes your panic as embarrassment and smiles.
Hey, that's not how I'd do it, but people eat with their hands where I come from,
he tells you, winking. He talks a lot when he's nervous and thinks your sounds are you actively listening. As he tells you about his works and his history, you want to shout, "Run, you goddamn fool, run! They're eating me alive. I feel them making cavities in my lungs and heart and brain. I can feel them lay eggs and feel how they grow and eat and make more. Run, or they'll make holes of your flesh too." But the flies control your tongue, so perfect and warm for larvae, and Mo is too nice to say your deranged smile looks like the death mask of an agonized corpse. The food comes. His tampaqueña plate is steaming, as is your plate of mole. As he takes his fork and says, "Bon appetit," the flies reach across the table and take 2 fistfuls of his food. The grease reddens and splits your skin, but the flies want to eat. As you gag on the food and flies, you stare at Mo, praying the bullshit niceties of wanting to get laid will finally fall away, and he can see he is in danger. "Norma, are you okay?" he asks you. The flies slam you onto your plate of mole teeth first, and you vacuum it into your mouth like a cartoon aardvark. Your arms scoop up the plate until the food scatters across your face, in your mouth, up your nose, and your choking is meaningless to the things that eat you because the thousands of mouths are hungry, and the eggs in their bellies require amino acids and complex sugars and proteins, and your flesh and your blood. When the food clears from your eyes, Mo is on his feet. There is a genuine concern in his eyes, and you think, "Run! God, just run!" But all he does is ask if you're okay. The couple at the next table stares at you. They are stopped mid-motion, the husband with fork-speared chicken hovering above his plate, and the wife tries to hide behind her glass of horchata. The flies smell their meals and launch you onto their table. The table edge catches you beneath the ribs and forces a wad out of you and onto the floor. It is a hunk of rice rolling as if alive with greedy flies stripping it, kiss by kiss. People scatter and the flies work your arms until you're cramming the food down your throat like purging in reverse. You choke, but all your body does is aspirate your lungs with spicy food, and the flies drink your tears before they reach the ducts. The flies feel you're dying. Their incubator is done, and all there is left to do is find another. There is a purpose to the way they devour you. They ignore your muscles now, your veins and neurons. They want out, and by some trick of nature, the tides of your blood, the pull of gravity, they move up and away, tearing pathways through you. To Mo, you look like you're in mid-seizure. There are calls for help, and amidst the neurons ablaze, you see a future. A cloud bursting through the restaurant windows as fattened hosts move across streets with cowls of milling flies, and the living iridescence of their wings and bodies will storm across rooftops and across rivers, more and more born like fireworks, until it's not the city but the land itself, and your synapses frying and severed. They will reach the oceans and stop because the rest will be in airplanes and on ships until there is not 1 inch of land untouched by the starving clouds. There is a crowd around you. Mo is among them. He's on the phone calling for help. Multitudes of pinprick pressures erupt across your stomach and your breasts. Your clothes move like your skin boils underneath. There is blood, and it weighs your blouse down until the flies must walk across your cratered flesh and out of your buttonholes and collar. They force their way out of your mouth like a fist. There is a scattering of people, and you think for an instant that it's useless because the flies will find an entry into all of them, as they had done with you. Just before the legions of flies burst your eyes from their sockets, you look at Mo. He hasn't moved. He is terrified for you even as the flies begin to conquer him.
Run.
You think as hundreds of spear mouths make holes of your eyes.
Run.
And that was A Dinner of Your Flesh by Mario E. Martinez. Again, I want to remind you all to check out his book, The Chickens Are Not Her Chickens, for a whole tome of Mario stories guaranteed to leave you in a stranger place. A little about the author. Mario E. Martinez writes weird stories in South Texas where he lives and teaches. Giggity. He's written novels, Ash Tree and Neo Laredo, short story collection San Casimiro, Texas, and A Pig Named Orenius and Other Strange Tales, and most notably his brand new book called The Chickens Are Not Her Chickens. Check out the show notes for a link or search it at Amazon.com. Also, visit Mario's website at marioemartinez.squarespace.com. Hey, thanks Mario. Really appreciate it, amigo.
And do old Drew Blood a favor, would you? Subscribe to his podcast wherever you do your listening and leave him a 5-star review and a kind word, even if you're listening on YouTube. He needs soldiers on all fronts to win this battle, and he appreciates it. To hear a premium ad-free edition of tonight's and all the other episodes, visit simplyscarypodcast.com today and click Patrons in the upper menu. You'll find yourself at chillingtalesfordarknights.com, where you can become a patron for as little as $5 per month and get access to their entire audio archive, all ad-free and available to download or stream. Thank you for your time and for supporting our sponsors. When you support our sponsors, you support this show. If you happen to use Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube, you can follow and subscribe to Chillin' Tales for Dark Nights there, where you'll get all the latest updates and new releases and have the chance to interact with them each and every week. Oh, and you can find Drew Blood on Facebook and Instagram, and sometimes Twitter. The Drew Blood's Dark Tales podcast is accepting submissions, friend. If you've got a story or two you'd like to be featured on the show, send it to drewbloodhorror@gmail.com. If selected, you'll get the full treatment, 10 bananas.
Well, I'm afraid this is where we part ways, at least till next week. So grab a drink for the road, friend. And if you see Chester out there with his prick in a hollowed-out knothole, kindly remind him who the real whore is. Teenagers. So may the wind be at your back, and may the road rise up to meet you. Remember, when the pumpkins glow, the ghosts will show. So while you've still got a little privacy, go fuck yourselves. Good night, my friends.
Chilling tales for dark nights.